Have you ever felt disappointed or embarrassed by something that you did or tried or created in the past? Well, if so, let me say you're in great company because I certainly have, and I dare say we all have. Today, I'd like to share with you an Irish tale that gives us another way of looking at the relationship between the past and the present and even the future. So, Fáilte a Chairde, Fáilte Umchrí, welcome from my heart. I'm so happy that you're here. Glad to be with you today. My name is Kate, and like all of you, I am a multi-passionate creator, and I'm also a professor of Irish language and folklore. And I love to bring these two things together to help us live joyful, creative lives and to share our gifts, which is really the point, isn't it? So let me tell you the story. And first, I'll just tell you that the story was collected in 1963 in County Louth by a legendary folklore collector called Michael J. Murphy. I'll tell you the story and then we'll talk it over. Once, long ago, there was a young man, and he was married and he had a young son. And in the house with his wife and his young son lived his old father. And the young man watched his old father day by day, and it seemed to him he was good for nothing. All he did was eat and smoke. He did no work, he offered nothing, he was of no use to anyone. And he was beginning to get very annoyed. Day by day he stewed on this. He thought to himself, all he does is take up my resources. He offers us nothing. He has to go. Well, finally one evening, a very cold winter evening, he announced to the house, to his father and to his wife and to his young son, "The old man has to go. I'm putting him out on the roads tonight. I've had just about enough of this." And his wife said, "It's freezing cold outside. You can't do that." He said, "I most certainly can, and I am. You're going to have to go. Dad, it's time for you to leave." When the wife said, "No, no, darling, that's cruel. If you're going to put him out on the roads, you have to at least give him a blanket." And the son said, I'll do no such thing. I'm not going to give him a blanket." Well, she prevailed upon him. She said, "He'll freeze to death. Give him a blanket." And the young son, the child, who was almost just a baby still, spoke up. The very first words he ever spoke, and he said, "Don't give him a whole blanket." And they turned in shock to look at the child. "What did you say?" "Don't give him a whole blanket," repeated the child. "Give him just half a blanket." They were astonished to hear this child speaking. "What do you mean, give him half a blanket?" And the child said, "Well, give him half a blanket and put the other half away so that I can give it to you when it's your time to be thrown out on the roads." And so the old man stayed. Now, that is a great story, isn't it? And obviously the top layer of meaning there is really a warning about the relationship we should have to old people, literal old people, that really they have earned their place at the hearth, and they have earned the creature comforts they receive from us. It's also a warning that we model for the young how we will have that relationship and the kind of way that we're going to see each other in a household and in a society. So just that alone is so powerful and valuable. But I want to offer you today just another potential way of seeing this story. I see in this story a powerful lesson about cycles and about our relationship within ourselves to our own past, present, and future. This story spends time pointing out that there's 3 generations in this house, that there's a grandfather and a father and a son. Well, 2 fathers and 2 sons, I suppose, but you know what I mean. There's 3 generations. And really, if you think about it, that infant, that child who speaks up so prophetically would not be here had his grandfather not been here, and had his grandfather not been kind to his father and helped him and raised him. So This story says to me that once we start disowning, we will start a cycle of disowning. Now, let's think about what those characters in this house can be. And I want to just propose that we can think about this family or this household as a kind of household of the self, a household of you, and the different selves and the different chronologies that are inhabiting that house. Now, if we look at the old man through the young man's eyes, all he sees is someone who is consuming resources, someone who is not giving back. If we look at him, though, through the eyes of love, we see something very different. We see someone of experience. We see someone who probably has stories to tell, who has kindness and richness from a life lived. And we have disowned that. And it's easy to do that. There are many creative projects, I'll say, from my past that I can look at and would almost rather just ignore, instead of noticing that they offer me lessons of experience, lessons of development of my skills, lessons of what didn't work even, that there is actually a resource in the past. Now, if we look also at the other characters, I would say that the father, the present self, that is us. That is us today, sort of navigating between the past and the future. And that future child is the freshness of what's coming and deserves to be nurtured. And the past, I would argue, is one of the great ways we can nurture that self. So if we look at our lives with that kind of reductive vision and we look at our past, we miss the opportunity to see how the past can nourish not just the present, but the future. I think it can. So the story gives us this idea that by opening the house, I guess is what I want to say, by keeping the house open to all of ourselves, the past and the future, we have a potential to have wholeness. We have a potential to have what is coming sort of stand on the shoulders of the past. So this is just a little nudge for all of us to look with more loving eyes at the past. Now, there's one more character I think we need to talk about, and that is the mother. The wife. She is that kindness, that merciful impulse within us, that whisper that says, oh, but there's more here. And wait a minute, let's not just throw things away. Let's be kind, right? So we need also to nourish that part of ourselves that can look at all the wholeness of us in the most generous way and help us to make a home for all of ourselves. So I want to ask you, what is your relationship? What kind of relationship do you have with your past creativity or your past self and your future creativity? So you can think about this just generally in your life. I think it's worth thinking about. Or you can think about it as an artist, as a creative person that you are. What is your relationship, and how will you welcome and honor the past parts of you and the past creative efforts that you've made in order to nourish the future creative parts of you, or the future of yourself? How will you make room for that wholeness that you are? How will you keep everyone and have a joyful and loving household, the house of the self? So thank you so much for watching as ever. I hope you enjoyed that. Please give this a thumbs up. It really does help me. And I love to hear your comments. It's such a valuable discussion we're having. Such creative, interesting, cool people are showing up. So I so appreciate you. And if you haven't, please subscribe and join our community. It's a joy to have you with us. So as ever, I'm wishing you a week of wholeness. I'm wishing you a week in which you honor all parts of yourself, especially those parts in the past that you may be tempted to disown. And instead you call them back in by the fire of yourself and say, you too belong, and I see how valuable you are. All right, my friends, I'll see you next week. Slán Anish.